I think if you ask me to sum up how I see things at the moment, I would say tough but manageable. In other words, I mean, I think everybody in the room would agree that even in the fast growth markets of the world, you know, which are now about 31% of our business, so that's the BRICS, the next 11, as Jim O'Neill would have called it, or still does, even though he's left Goldman Sachs. So it's Asia, it's Latin America, Africa, and Middle East and Central Eastern Europe. Even those markets are slow growth. So although we had a very strong third quarter, we release our sales data. We say a little bit about margins and profitability, but we had a very strong third quarter. But what I said then was what we lost on the fast growth market roundabouts, we gained on the mature market swings. And I think that was the best way of putting it. Digital as a whole should be more important as a function. And my view is very strongly that it should be fully integrated. Right? It should be fully integrated into the marketing mix. We shouldn't have these divisions. It was interesting on the last panel, particularly in relation to social. So the last couple of comments I thought were really interesting, because it started to talk about, you know, the split between financial communications, corporate communications, marketing. You know, the issue that bedevils, I think, client companies and indeed ourselves as agencies is those silos, is those functional and geographical silos that prevent communications. They are blocks on communications. And integrating it, I think, is critically important. Now, our clients receive data from multiple sources, including ourselves. When we talk about big data at WPP, which is $4.5 billion out of that 18 or 22 billion that I mentioned in terms of our revenues, when we look at that, what we're saying is take our data, take the competitive sources of data, put it together on one dashboard in real time that you can use in a meaningful way. That's what we understand big data to be, certainly in the initial stages. Because what happens, I come back to the silos, all our clients are siloed, functionally and geographically, as we are. And people fail to compare and contrast. And that's what has to be done. Because if you think about the investment that's being made by clients in this area, it's colossal. I do find it quite extraordinary when the public relations segment in Cannes is won by advertising agencies. Oh, by the way, the other thing that happens is the advertising agencies put in for the awards, and often the media agencies or the PR agencies or the design agencies who have been an integral part of what that award represents don't put it in. So it's history. It'll change. It'll change. I mean, as Cannes becomes, you know, we're trying to encourage Cannes, for example, to include, I mean, you may find this loathsome, but to include data. Visualization of data is a very interesting, you may think this is crazy, very interesting creative area. How you present data in a meaningful way to consumers that they will understand, comprehend,
well, the Obama campaign is a good example of that.
Very good example. Yeah. I said, you know, it's strategically puzzling, it's structurally clunky, there are regulatory issues, there are no benefits that have been articulated for clients, and I mean no benefits that have been articulated for clients, or indeed for the people in the organization. But apart from that, did you enjoy the play, Mrs. Lincoln? No, listen, it's often, we often get asked that question, and the question, why did they do it? And I think if you really look at it, and I think if we had the two protagonists here in a fit of transparency and honesty, yeah, Publicis it was a great deal for, because, you know, if you look at the numbers, there's no way that Publicis was worth the same as Omnicom. And when John Wren, actually, I think with great insight, said, when asked, why did you do it on July the 26th, when they announced it, he said, the stars were aligned. That was actually a very prophetic phase, because what actually happened at that point in time is the two market caps were in sync. They were 50-50. So the stars did align, and Maurice got parity for a company that was demonstrably only worth 40%, or maybe 45% of the total. And I think that was a great deal for him. For Ren, if you look at the TSRs, the total shareholder returns, for ourselves against Omnicom or against Publicis, for the last 1, 5, 10 years on Bloomberg, you use their app, go and run the comparisons there. You will be staggered by what you see. And basically, Omnicom, from a TSR point of view, for the last 10 years has trod water. Just done better than maybe about the same as the S&P. So I think they did it for defensive reasons. And that's the reason I think they came together. I don't think strategically it made much sense because the two companies were going in opposite directions. Structurally, it's co-CEOs, co-chairmen, you know, we'll be co-CEOs for 2.5 years, and after 2.5 years, you'll be chairman and I'll be CEO, and then after another 2.5 years, you retire, I'll become chairman and I'll pick my CEO. I mean, whether this gets through the corporate governance, I mean, on a serious note, if this gets through the corporate governance hurdles, it will be a miracle. I mean, if ISS agrees to that as being the corporate structure, it sets a precedent, I think, which is quite extraordinary. So, for all those reasons, I think it was more defensive, actually, in many respects. From a PR point of view, it's very interesting because one company, Omnicom, has a much stronger, I think, public relations offering, and I don't want to upset anybody in the room, but I think it's true.
Well, they have more.
Well, no, more and better, I think, just as an observer, right? And I think we would say that if we were having our quarterly meetings, Donna, we would
Where's
say,
Andy?
If I asked you, you know, who's the good competition, you would certainly agree with what I just said. So the big battleground here, is going to be who controls what. Now, on digital, Publicis are saying we're the best digital operation, and Omnicom are saying, no, it's got to be run out of New York, not Paris. On PR, you would argue, if I was them, you know, it should be run out of New York or the US, because that's where the strength and the combined PR operations are. And I always thought it was funny, actually, being very, very naughty here. Who's the head of PR at Publicis? What's his name? The French guy. Yeah, Olivier, right. When he sent a note saying, I welcome my sisters and brothers, I could almost feel the tsunami rippling through Omnicom's public relations unit. So the fact that Olivier would suggest that they were on parity. So, but we all know that. We all think we're better than we are. Or some of us do, some of us don't. And it's always a problem. But I think it's a real issue. From our point of view, and indeed from our competitors' point of view who are not part of POG, it's a big opportunity. You know, there's already a lot of movement people-wise, a lot. And a lot of movement client-wise, a lot. And I don't mean the clients are going to come out and say, there's a conflict here, we're going to do something about it, but it's going to be much more subtle than that. So.
Any plans to buy IPG?
Cheeky devil, I've got to go.
I had to ask one.
The answer is, I mean, if you look at valuations, and in fact, go back to that Bloomberg app and look at what's remarkable is the value attributed to Havas and IPG. In fact, in total shareholder return for the last 5 years, IPG has done better than Omnicom. It's amazing. Maybe Harris and others would say it's not amazing, but I mean, so valuations, I think, have got ahead of them. So the answer to your question, the question would be a no, because the valuation, I think, is out of sight. But you know, if in 5 years.